Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you very much for joining us today. We are looking forward to a great discussion about peer learning for evidence use in parliaments. My name is Emily Hayter, and I am Programme Manager for Evidence-Informed Policymaking at INASP. So I'm really delighted to welcome you all to our webinar today. I'm going to be chairing the discussion, and I'm looking forward to hearing insights from our excellent panel of speakers, as well as the many other colleagues who've joined us online today. I understand we have people joining us from a number of different countries and from other parliaments around the world as well. So warm welcome to everyone and looking forward to the discussion. So our speakers today, we have Marale Sande from Parliament of Kenya. We have John Mugabe Bagonza from Parliament of Uganda, and we have Dr. Zachariah from Parliament of Ghana, and all three of those colleagues are in the research department in their respective parliaments. Unfortunately, we have apologies from Honourable Dr. Mulu from Parliament of Kenya, who was unable to join us today and sent his apologies. After we hear from our three parliamentary speakers, we have Dr. Rashid Jaman from the African Centre for Parliamentary Affairs, who's going to be our discussant today and help us think through some of the key themes that emerge from the discussion. So your questions and comments are most welcome. Please do type them in the window at the bottom of the screen, and we'll pick these up during the discussion, and we'll do our best to feed those through to the speakers. You can also join the discussion on Twitter, and those are the Twitter handles. So the only other thing I wanted to say just now is a big thank you to Narina and her team at the Effective Institutions platform for making this webinar possible today. And also to our volunteer, Lindsay, who has been a great help to us throughout this project. So I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about INASP for those that might not be familiar with our work. So INASP works to strengthen research and knowledge systems to inform development. We're currently active in 28 countries, and we work across the research to policy system. So as part of this, we've been working most recently with parliaments in Africa for several years now. So that's the work that we're drawing on in this webinar today. So Parliament's three core functions, as many of you know, are legislation, representation and oversight, and a wide range of evidence is needed for parliaments to meet those functions. And there are lots of aspects that make parliaments a particularly interesting type of institution to look at in the context of evidence-informed policy. I won't go into all of those here today, but you can read more about them in our new paper published with ASEPA, which is available on our website at the link provided. So lots of key kind of questions that shape how we understand evidence in parliaments. So this diagram shows Parliament's internal information support staff. So these are the people who are on the front lines of gathering, synthesizing and communicating evidence within Parliament. And what we're considering today is how the staff in this system work with MPs. So we know that these staff respond to MP requests for information, and they serve committees with research reports and other forms of evidence. But we're asking, how can staff and MPs really work together to drive an evidence-informed approach within Parliament, to identify what evidence is needed and provide quality evidence at the right time and in the right format? So we're really looking forward to hearing from our colleagues on their experience on that question. So we're thankful to the Effective Institutions platform, as I mentioned, which is jointly hosted by UNDP and the OECD, and they've supported the extension of our parliamentary peer learning space through a Sparks grant over the last 6 months. And our approach to peer learning has been informed by the excellent peer-to-peer learning guide produced by the Effective Institutions platform, which is available on their website at the link provided. So would encourage anyone who's not familiar with that to have a look. It's been a really useful, valuable resource to us in thinking about peer learning in parliaments. So next, we're going to hear about some experience from our partner parliaments in Kenya, Uganda and Ghana. Then we'll be opening up for questions and discussion. Do remember to type your comments and questions in the box at the bottom of the window, and we will be coming back to those later on. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And I am going to welcome our first speaker now, Marale Sande from the Parliamentary Research Service at the Parliament of Kenya. And Marale is going to be telling us more about their Parliamentary Caucus on Evidence-Informed Decision-Making, which is a joint initiative between staff and MPs in the Kenyan Parliament. So over to you, Marale, and a very warm welcome to our session today.
Hello.
Hi, Marale, we can hear you. Thank you very much for joining us. Please do go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Emily, for the introduction. So as a way of introduction, I just wanted to say that I think we're all aware that Parliament is a very unique environment where evidence is consumed. But alongside evidence, we know that we have competing interests, particularly where evidence should form part and parcel of decision making, because we have politicians in the houses and they have interests as well, which they have to leverage on when making decisions. So when it comes to evidence, we are aware that we really have a lot of work to be able to ensure that members of Parliament, in their various capacities of decisions and oversighting over the executive and legislating, are able to make use of the evidence that is very key to the decision making. So in that context, I just want to say that the Parliamentary Caucus on Evidence-Informed Oversight and Decision-Making is one of the key, most recent example of staff.
Hi, Marale, and we've got a couple of people struggling to hear you here. Just wondering whether you could maybe just step a bit closer to your mic.
All right, can you hear me now? Is it loud enough? So I was saying members of Parliament. All right. So the Parliamentary Caucus on Evidence-Informed Decision-Making, we call it the caucus, is basically a classic example of an MP staff initiative where members of staff and parliamentarians who are champions of evidence felt that there was need for members of Parliament to embrace the use of evidence while making decisions, because we felt that there was this, like I indicated earlier, the competition between political interests and evidence. And so there was need for this push to make sure that members of Parliament use evidence. And so the caucus was established in 2015. In 2015, towards the end of the 11th Parliament, and as you're all aware, we are just starting our 12th Parliament and we are still in transition. And so it's a non-partisan outfit where all members, irrespective of the political affiliation, you're allowed to be a part of it. And it's members of both houses. We have the National Assembly and the Senate, who are expected to be members of this caucus. And the main objective of the caucus is actually to increase evidence uptake among members of Parliament. And it was an initiative of members of Parliament themselves, of course, with the support of the staff, who are supposed to act as the secretariat of this outfit. And the goal is basically to advocate for this eradication, basically eliminating this opinion-based policy and embrace the use of evidence and research information so that members can make use of the already existing structures in place in Parliament, for example, the Parliamentary Research Services and the Budget Office and the Legal Department, so that they can be able to make informed decisions. So far in the 11th Parliament, like I said, this is our 12th Parliament, which commenced on August 8th, although we are still in transition with a few issues that we need to take care of. We'd seen milestones as far as the caucus is concerned. We saw the leadership of Parliament embracing this outfit and feeling like this is the way to go. This is the way to be able to remind members of Parliament, even in their various capacities where they have this very many competing interests. So it's the way to go. And so we saw the leadership of Parliament embracing it and taking it on board. And we also saw the fact that the caucus was recognized in the standing orders. So the caucuses are actually recognizing the standing orders thanks to the leadership of Parliament. We had an opportunity to develop a 5-year strategic plan for 2016-2021. Like I said, the caucus was established in 2015. And so going forward, we have a vision for the caucus to see how well can we be able to inform members, about evidence use. Informs about evidence use, and also we have seen the extent with which the caucus has been able to bridge the gap between policy analysts and members of Parliament themselves. We're seeing that bridging of the gap and members being able to appreciate that indeed we have research analysts out there who are doing research and which we can be able to consume as members of Parliament, and members are also appreciating research, and we're seeing champions amongst members themselves coming out very strongly to say that we really need information, we need research to be able to make decisions. How can we get this information? And so we are also, as staff on our own, we are trying to see how we can be able to strengthen our capacity to be able to provide members with information and evidence. And so, like I also mentioned earlier, the existence of these outfits like research services that have the capacity to provide information to the members of Parliament and evidence to the members of Parliament. We are seeing that we have been able to strengthen that even in the 11th Parliament, so that we can, even as we push members to use evidence in decision making, we are also upscaling our capacity to be able to provide that evidence. Finally, I think as a milestone, I just want to mention that one of the other things that we were able to leverage was the linkages and collaborations among partners. For example, the AFIDEP and INASP who came on board to ensure that we're able to do this most in a much better way, in a more organized and structured way. So basically, those are some of the milestones for the 11th Parliament, and going forward into the 12th Parliament. Like I indicated, this is our Parliament is in transition. We're moving into the 12th.
Sorry, Marale, we're struggling to hear you again. If you could come a little closer to the microphone again, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so like I indicated earlier, we are moving into the 12th Parliament, and so we're asking ourselves, given that we had started this journey with members of Parliament, how can we make sure that we leverage on the strength, we leverage on the successes that we had in the previous Parliament to sustain this momentum? And our 12th Parliament started 2017 to 2021. We have introduced the idea of the caucus to the new Parliament. We have, unfortunately, the champions of the caucus didn't make it back to Parliament, but we have introduced the caucus to other champions who are willing to be the flag or to carry the idea forward. And these are honorable member from the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Mudu and Makali Mudu, and Senator Omanga, who are now the chair and the co-chair, the interim chair and the co-chair of the caucus, and the champions going forward into the 12th Parliament. And to be able to do this, of course, we had a few challenges, and one of the challenges, of course, is that the caucuses are not recognized, are not really financed by the Parliament, because they are deemed to be informal. And so one of the challenges we had was, of course, the support in terms of resources to be able to carry this agenda forward. And that is why, as staff and supporters of members of Parliament, we felt that there is need for us to collaborate with the SPARK project, which fortunately enough we were able to link up with, and because of that, we were able to reintroduce this during the inductions of members of Parliament. Through the project, we were able to do publications and introduce the caucus to members of Parliament in the 12th Parliament during the orientation, when the orientation was being done like 3 months ago after the elections. And so the project as well was able to provide a platform for sharing of ideas with other peers, other members of staff from other parliaments. For example, we had an opportunity to share ideas with staff from Malawi and Uganda, so that we can leverage on their ideas on how they're able to do this, how they're able to be able to entrench evidence in their own parliament. And through this, we were able to pick 1 or 2 things which we are going to implement even as undertake our orientation amongst members of parliament within their respective committees, starting in the course of next week or the following week. So, and like I said again, the caucus is a product of regional learning. An initiative that was started by 2 members of parliament in the last parliament, after visiting or after attending a conference, the African Parliamentarians Network on Development and Evaluation. These 2 members felt that they needed to cascade the ideas they learned about evidence use to their respective parliament. This outfit, UpNod, was founded in 2014, and its objective is to enhance the capacity of African parliamentarians to improve their oversight and policy making and national decisions by ensuring that evidence is core in all these things. So, so to speak, having said that, these members felt that this is an opportunity for them to be able to push this agenda downwards to their respective parliaments, and that's how the caucus was born, and that's how these members were champions and decided that this is what they need to do in their respective parliament and in the Parliament of Kenya, and that is how the caucus was introduced in the parliament. And so basically, what we are saying is that it is an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. It was an opportunity for even Parliament of Kenya to learn from other peers. And out of this, we are seeing success stories. We are seeing that evidence is slowly being appreciated. And going forward, particularly in this context where we are seeing a lot of political competing interests among politicians and other interests, we are feeling that this is an opportunity for us to push this agenda of evidence use amongst our members of parliament. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marale, for that really interesting comments there. If anyone does have any questions for Marale about the Parliamentary Caucus on Evidence-Informed Decision-Making in Kenya, please do type those in the window at the bottom, and we will be picking those up, and we can feed those over to Marale at the end once we've heard from all of our presenters. So next, I would like to introduce John Mugabe Bagonza, who's the Director of the Department of Research Services at Parliament of Uganda. And Parliament of Uganda has been an in-house partner for some years now. It's been a pleasure to work with John and his team. And he's going to be telling us about their experience reaching out to MPs through a Research Week model, which they implemented last year and which has been highly successful. So looking forward to hearing more about that. John, please do go ahead. Hi everyone. While we just wait to get John on board, I thought maybe we could take 1 or 2 questions for Marale, because I see people have been typing those in the window below. So Marale, I will bring you on as a speaker in just a moment to answer these. We've got 1 question from Kenneth. How is the advisory function of the caucus structured? Can you tell us who initiates the process of evidence search? And how is the research uptake process structured in the caucus?
Okay, the question on advisory function of the caucus. Like I said, the caucus was initiated in 2015, and the caucus actually it's not. It doesn't provide the advisory. It's not an advisory outfit. It's an advocacy outfit. So because, like I said, have already institutionalized or already existing structures to provide evidence in Parliament. For example, the Budget Office, we have the Parliamentary Research Office. So these are outfits that are already structured in the parliamentary system. However, we have felt there is need for an outfit to push to increase evidence uptake. So basically, the caucus is its function is to increase or to advocate for use of evidence amongst parliamentarians, and it has nothing to do with advisory function it has no advisory function, but it's just an advocacy tool for members themselves to inform other members, to tell their fellow peers about using evidence. And so how it does that is through, for example, trainings. The caucus initiate trainings, the caucus initiate dialogues, and members of parliament are invited, yes, to attend dialogues with other policy the other policy think tanks and initiators of evidence out there. So it's basically a bridge between members of parliament themselves and researchers out there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marale. I think I'll take one more question just while we are waiting for John. Interesting question from Josephine in Uganda. One of the main problems in Uganda, she says, is high member turnover after elections. So she's asking Marale, how do you ensure institutional memory of the caucus?
What I would say about the institutional memory of the caucus is that one of the things that we were able to do is just to realize that, like you said, there's the high turnover of members of parliament is really it's a fact, and it's a tradition even around here in Kenya. However, the secretariat of the caucus is within the Parliamentary Research Service, because it was felt that it was something that has to do with the department, the Parliamentary Research Service, and so the secretariat is domiciled within the PRS. And in addition to that, we felt that there must be a link between the caucus, the secretariat, which is in PRS, and the clerk's chamber, because the clerk's chamber is where, or the houses, both houses, is where the agenda of the house is derived. So we cannot be purporting to do research, we cannot be purporting to provide evidence if you don't link it to the agenda of both houses. And so what we did is to ensure that we have a link to both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly, because that is where the evidence, the agenda is derived for evidence to be able to inform that agenda. And so we have the clerks of both houses represented in the caucus as logisticians to provide support for the caucus, as PRS provide the technical support and institutional memory. So basically we have the institutional memory from both the clerk's chamber and the PRS.
Great, thank you very much, Marale. I think we are going to try and move on to John's presentation now. So John, as I mentioned, is Director of the Department of Research Services at Parliament of Uganda. John, over to you, and we're looking forward to hearing. Okay, I think we're having some technical problems with John's presentation, unfortunately. So we will try and bring him back for the questions after the presentations. But in the meantime, I will run through his presentation on Research Week at Parliament of Uganda. So shame that we can't get John online to tell you about this himself, but we will do our very best to get him available for questions at the end. So just a little bit about the Department of Research Services in Parliament of Uganda. The purpose is to support the work of Parliament by providing research analysis and technical guidance. So the Department of Research Services in Uganda is actually one of the larger research services that we've worked with in UNASP. They have over 30 researchers. So one problem that they were facing was a really high turnover of MPs, which I think a number of other parliaments in the region also are familiar with that challenge. And that was really affecting uptake of evidence and also the visibility of the DRS and its products. So it was a really important sort of gap in terms of strengthening that role of the DRS and the visibility of the DRS to the MPs in the context of really high turnover. So the DRS designed and held a research week in August 2016, and it was a really successful series of events attended by 242 MPs. The Prime Minister was there, the Deputy Speaker, commissioners were there. Really well-attended event. And really what Research Week did is showcased the work of the research department to MPs and also to the research community in Uganda. So there was a display of research products. There were a number of side presentations on key policy topics. And the week finished with a symposium of over 100 participants discussing the role of research and evidence in Parliament of Uganda and bringing together users and producers of evidence. So there was quite extensive press briefs and merchandising materials as well available during the week. There is a short video of the week which is available on YouTube for anyone that hasn't seen it. So some of the results that the DRS saw from Research Week, one was they saw a really sharp increase in research requests coming from MPs. So there was a heightened demand for the use of evidence and MPs asking for more research and more information. There was really high media coverage as well, as I've mentioned. John appeared, for example, I think on a couple of national TV shows. There was press coverage, radio coverage, and so on. And there was also replication by other local and international institutions. So we will be hearing from Parliament of Ghana next in the presentation, and they will be able to say a little bit about what they learned from Research Week. They did actually attend and observe Research Week. So in addition to kind of international replication and uptake, I believe the DRS has since brokered a number of new external collaborations within Uganda across the kind of research to policy system. So John can hopefully tell us more about that when we get him back online. But the DRS has been able to strengthen its relationships with the Ugandan national research community, which is, of course, really important if we want to see quality evidence systematically feeding into decision making. Those relationships between the national research community and the Parliament are really important. So there's a number of ways that the DRS are thinking about taking this space around evidence forward, and they are thinking about ways that they can liaise with other parliaments in the region to share experience and keep sharing knowledge, both in terms of sort of technical knowledge and models, and also more tacit knowledge and experience which they've built up through their activities. And they are thinking about how to make those kinds of events and gatherings that they did, sort of how to solidify those within the parliamentary calendar and have them happening more regularly. So I know that is a real topic of interest for the DRS at the moment. So we will try to get John back to answer questions, and in the meantime I'd like to hand over to Dr. Zachariah from the Research Department in Parliament of Ghana, who's going to be telling us more about their work and how they engage with MPs. So Dr. Zachariah, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll hand over to you now.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Dr. Zachariah. We can hear you well.
Right. Thank you so much, Emily, for your introduction. My name is Dr. Zachariah, as you can see on the screen, a research officer of the Parliament of Ghana.
Sorry, Dr. Zachariah, I think if you could come a little bit closer to the microphone, we'll be able to hear you better.
Okay. Right. All right. I hope you can hear me loud now.
I'm hearing you well now.
The Research Department of Parliament as... Hello? Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you well now. Please do go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, as we are all aware, Parliament perform basic three functions, and these are just the lawmaking and oversight and the representation. And in the performance of all these functions, each Parliament needs evidence to be able to do its work, properly. So you find that research departments are very common, being established all around. Ghana's parliament is not a new parliament that has established a research department. So basically, the research department performs so many functions by providing evidence, assisting members of parliament be able to make their statements in the floor, be able to defend whatever statement that they are making, have access to.
Sorry, Dr. Zachariah, excuse me. We're finding that you're dropping quite a bit. I'm wondering if you could step a little bit closer to the microphone, or maybe try and speak a little bit louder because we're losing you. Thanks.
Okay. So basically, even though the research department of Parliament has been in existence for some years now, we found that it faced a number of challenges. It had a feasibility issue. Most members of Parliament did not even know the existence of the department, let alone knowing their products that they can access and use. The research department also has very few staff, and staff serving 225 members of Parliament. You can see that this is woefully inadequate, looking at the number of MPs that you have and the kind of evidence that you require. The department's closest working relationship within Parliament Information Support System are these three departments: the library, ICT, and then committees. And they will also notice that over the years, these departments were not collaborating adequately, they were not collaborating well. Therefore, it affected the provision of evidence to the House and to members for them to be able to do the kind of work they are supposed to do. Well, in trying to go around these challenges, we 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 happen to have attended the research week organized by Uganda, the one you just discussed. We participated in that week. We're able to, out of that, we learned a lot of experiences. So when we came back, we decided that the three departments that collaborate to provide evidence to the House should form a group. So we formed what we call IDRIC. It was formed in 2017. IDRIC is Interdepartmental Research Group, Interdepartmental Research and Information Group. So it is just all the departments that provide information and research to Parliament. They came together and then formed this group so that we can always collaborate and see how we can provide the evidence that is required for the work of the House. Under the auspices of the Westminster Foundation, in collaboration with the Parliament, we established this department, and then we're able to find a research week just as the one organized by the Ugandan Parliament. Actually, we drew experiences from what happened in Uganda, and we thought that by going that way, we'll be able to make the research department and all the information services providing department visible to members of Parliament. Thereby, they will be able to use the evidence that we generate. So far, we have been successful. We'll be able to organize 2 research weeks in order to create awareness of our existence and also showcase our products. The awareness of the existence of the department as well as its products and services has increased among members in the Ghanaian legislature because of the organization of these 2 research. The first one was just to showcase our products. The first research showed that what we have been doing, and what we have available to them. We noticed that a lot of them did not know those evidence. The second one, we interlace the showcasing of our products with seminars, whereby we brought a number of research think tanks from across the country, and some from ISA and other places. ISA is Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. We brought them to do presentations regarding the use of evidence, the kind of evidence that they also have, and how they can collaborate with Parliament so that we can provide evidence for members to be able to. So the two exhibition weeks that we organized under the IDRIC project actually increase the awareness of members of Parliament about the existence of the research department and that it has. We have sufficient. Sorry. So out of these, you could see that we notice a change in the way we work with each other. There's collaboration among the units, especially between the research and committees. It has improved because you find that researchers easily to committees for information, and then the committees also provide the kind of information that we need. And they also come to us with their members' requests and take evidence for members of their committees. We also noticed that the number of MPs that are visiting the research department has more than doubled. In fact, we could count the number of people members that used to come. But these days, we are overwhelmed with the requests that are coming from members of Parliament as a result of the research weeks that we had organized. We also noticed that the products that we do, such as the budget briefs and other products that we create, there's increasing number of members that are asking for it, always asking for it at the committee's level and at their individual level. I think I'll end here, and if there's any questions, I will take those questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zakaria. We've had really interesting questions, so we'll try and put as many of them as we can to the speakers. I think what I'll do first is maybe just see if we can get John online for one of the questions for Uganda, and then I'll hand over to Rashid to pull out some of the key themes of the discussion after that. So one of the questions for Uganda was from Narina, I think. How does the research department cope with this increased demand for research and information? It was mentioned in your presentation slides, John, that there'd been such a sharp increase in demand for research after Research Week. And could you tell us how the DRS is meeting that increased demand? Okay, I think unfortunately still having technical difficulties with John. So what I will do then at the moment is hand over to Dr. Rashid Draman from the African Centre for Parliamentary Affairs to talk us through his response to the presentations that we've heard today. So over to you, Rashid. I think unfortunately we're having technical difficulties with Rashid as well. So let's try and maybe have another question for one of the presenters. So one of the questions for Marale was, how do MPs hear from staff? Sometimes the MPs might not want to be advised by staff. So what comments would you have around communication, Marale, between MPs and staff, and how to get that working effectively?
Emily, could you kindly come again? I didn't quite get the question or what the question.
Sure. So there was a question, a comment from one of the audience members saying, how do MPs hear from staff? Sometimes MPs might not want to be advised by staff. So how can you strengthen the communication between MPs and staff? And I was thinking that you would be a good person to answer that one, because the caucus does just that, doesn't it, in terms of strengthening communication between MPs and staff.
Okay, thank you, Emily, for the question. In terms of communication and how the MPs communicate, how staff communicate the information or evidence to members of parliament, and how the caucus is able to do that is that, like I indicated earlier, the caucus is about advocating for use of evidence. And so when we have a platform, for example, a policy dialogue, we invite members of staff from the research service and other think tanks to be able to make presentations to members, and so to be able to communicate some of these outputs to the members of parliament. And because of that, the caucus it acts as a link between researchers, including staff, and policymakers who are the members of parliament. In addition, we have, just like my colleague from Ghana indicated, that we have researchers attached to committees in various committees. So basically, each committee of either house has a researcher attached to those committees, and because of that, they're able to communicate this evidence and information through respective committees. And in addition to that, we also organize alongside the caucus, we have, like I indicated, policy dialogue to be able to inform members of parliament. In terms of whether members of parliament take up this information, I think that is something that cuts across all parliaments, because most of the time members of parliament will not take the information that you give. But I think our role as researchers and researchers to the legislature is to be able to provide or make available, package the information or evidence in a way that members can be able to understand, and then give it to them and show them the link between the issue or the question beforehand and the evidence that we have provided, and allow them to make a decision as to whether they're going to use the evidence or not, or whether they're going to take up the information or not, because our role is not to tell them to take up the information, but to give them, make it available to them. As to whether they are going to take up the information, I think in most cases it is up to them, because, like I said, we have a lot of political interest, competing interest when it comes to politicians and members of parliament. Yeah, but we as researchers, we are supposed to make sure we provide that information and let the members of parliament make that decision, decide whether they are going to use it or not. Yes.
Thanks very much, Marella. Yeah, I think that touches really on the key issue of sort of strong and credible but neutral, non-partisan research, and the importance of that kind of independent and non-political research within parliaments, which can then inform decision making. But certainly the role of the research department is not to be advising on one political direction or another. So I see in the chat window Nick asking about effective links between parliamentary research departments and universities and research institutions. And I can see John responding about how the Department of Research Services met the extra demand. And it sounds like actually one of the ways that the DRS did meet the extra demand that arose from Research Week was through technical support from UNAS. So where John has mentioned there, volunteers and technical support from UNAS helped to complete the requests from Research Week. UNAS is the Uganda National Academy of Sciences. So I think that was one of the most exciting things for me about seeing Research Week, and the way that Parliament of Uganda pulled it together was a partnership between Parliament and the National Academy of Sciences to really try and strengthen evidence use within Parliament. I'm just going to try again and see if we can get Rashid online to offer his comments and reactions to the presentation so far. Are you there, Rashid?
Emily,
I think we've got Rashid here now. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Not hearing you very well. It's sounding quite distant. wonder if you could come closer to the mic. I can hear you very faintly.
Emily, can you hear me?
We're still struggling to hear you. Sorry, Rashid. I think what I'll do is I'll take another question from the audience, and Rashid, maybe if you can reach out to Lindsay about how to get that audio working better, we'll try and bring you in as soon as we can. We've had a number of other questions. I'm going to take another question from Morale, which is, well, combining two questions. I hope the audience won't mind, but a couple of people were asking about how is evidence defined? Is there a process for assessing the quality of research? How do you ensure that evidence provided is authentic? So that's a really common question, and I think maybe more one about how the actual Parliamentary Research Service functions than particularly how the caucus functions. But I'll let Morale speak to that. Would you like to comment on that, Morale?
Comment on how evidence is defined. I think being able to define evidence is basically making information accessible to members of Parliament, and in terms of quality, we are talking about ensuring that the information being provided, research information or research evidence, whether it's through publication, whether it's through briefs, we are talking about ensuring that the information or the evidence is of high quality. In most cases, because of the nature of work the Parliamentary Research Service does, we are able to address very short-term and medium-term demands of members of Parliament, and not necessarily the long-term. And so most of the time, you will find that we consume a lot of evidence from already researched work, and so we package it and present it to members of Parliament based on the issue beforehand. But again, we also ensure that that information or that evidence we provide is of high quality. And so because how we're able to notice that the PRS has, of course, structures to ensure the quality, the information that we provide or the evidence we provide to members of Parliament is of high quality through levels of quality control and peer review processes that we have in place within the PRS or the research service. In terms of how the caucus works and how PRS works, the caucus and the PRS are actually independent outfit. The PRS is an office within the Parliamentary Service, the Parliamentary Service Commission. It is an office that is put in place the clerk of Parliament, and so the caucus is an informal outfit that brings together members of Parliament and staff. And so PRS is basically trying to use the caucus to be able to increase uptake amongst members of Parliament. And at the same time, the caucus is using PRS to be able to inform members that this is where evidence can be found. And so it's like we're actually collaborating and complementing each other. And so the caucus is like a committee of the House, however informal, which doesn't receive funding from Parliament, and so we get support from lots and lots of partners that we are working with. And on the other hand, we have PRS, which is an office of Parliament that is that was created or established to provide evidence to members of Parliament. So we complement each other and we support each other. Yes, I don't know whether I've answered the question, Emily.
Thank you very much, Morale. I've just seen a couple of questions below, just clarifying kind of the role of the research department. So from Zarina. So Zarina, the three speakers that we have today are all from the Parliamentary Research Services or Parliamentary Research Departments. So those are staff departments within Parliament. So what we're kind of thinking about is how can those staff departments reach out to MPs and kind of work more with MPs in terms of understanding their evidence needs and connecting with them. So I can answer that one. Marale and John and Dr. Zachariah are all members of the parliamentary staff. The research department is one of many of the different staff departments. Okay, I think we're going to try and bring Rashid back. Hopefully Rashid is able to connect and share some of his impressions of the discussion so far. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience while we have a couple of technical issues. Thanks for all the questions that we've had coming in the chat window below. I think one of the interesting ones that was just raised was around leadership and the importance of leadership from the demand side for using evidence, and that is absolutely a fundamental thing that we've seen in our work. And there's certainly, I think, different types of leadership and leadership at different levels which can influence evidence use as well. So thank you, Javier, for raising that one. I wonder if Marale would like to respond as well around the importance of leadership, and because that, for those of you that might not have heard earlier in her presentation, she was talking about the new chair that they have in their evidence-informed decision-making caucus, and the kind of role of the caucus in terms of supporting and fostering that kind of leadership and champions within Parliament. So great question. And Marale, is there anything you'd like to add on that?
I would say about leadership from the demand side, we are talking about leadership from the houses. We're talking about the speakers of the houses. We have, for the case of Kenya, we have 2 speakers of both houses who like take lead as far as issues of evidence are concerned, because when you have members of parliament on the floor of the house and the speaker is actually listens to all members, and he feels that the quality of debate is a problem, and so that's where actually he takes charge of how he can be able to strengthen the use of evidence by members of parliament. And so actually in our case, we have seen the leadership of parliament taking charge of this issue of evidence and being very supportive as far as ensuring that members of parliament embrace the use of evidence. And just like you also mentioned, the chairs of the caucus, they have to be very instrumental, and we are very pleased to say that so far we've had very good champions of evidence amongst the chairs, previous chairs, both the previous chairs and the current chairs. The current chair of the caucus is actually a lead person as far as evaluation and evidence is concerned, and he has a passion for that. And so we are hoping that he can actually provide that the much needed leadership as far as evidence use is concerned in Parliament. Yeah.
Thanks, Marale. I'm just going to see if we can bring John, Mr. Bagonza, in here to answer his feelings on leadership for evidence use. John, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hello.
Welcome. Very pleased to hear from you. Hi there.
Thank you. Yeah, when it comes to the issue of leadership in the Parliament of Uganda, both the Speaker, the Right Honourable Speaker, and the Deputy are very supportive. Even when we had the Research Week, you remember, and he said, without evidence, then Parliament would be non-functional. And they've been at the forefront of using the resources in the Department of Such Services, and they've even encouraged members of Parliament in the August House to use evidence. So leadership is important. So long as the leaders accept and would like to use evidence, then you are assured of a supportive kind of leaders.
Fantastic, thanks,
Then when it
John.
comes to then when it comes to the department, of course, for us as a department, we've been being it being our function to provide the evidence. We've been very keen to align and to bring on board whoever produces evidence, so that the members of parliament should have adequate evidence available to them wherever they need it. That's why we are opening different fronts. We are now working with Uganda National Academy of Sciences, so that they could come in and support us in providing evidence where we don't have the skills or where we have a heavy workload. And they've been supportive. We've reached now the stage of having an MOU, and we are developing an action plan to work with them in cases where we have gaps when it comes to evidence. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you very much, John, and thanks for highlighting that partnership between Parliament of Uganda and UNAS. I think from our work with a few different parliaments recently, that kind of real kind of formal MOU between a parliament and a research association to support evidence-informed decision-making in parliament is a really exciting thing to see. So thank you for highlighting that. While we have you here, I was wondering if you could also say a little bit more about the way forward for the DRS in terms of peer learning. On one of your slides, you had mentioned a functional association of the legislative parliaments, and I wondered whether you could say a little bit more about the next steps in terms of peer learning that you see.
Thank you, Emily. On the issue of way forward, number one, we are sure that we shall be holding a symposium every year where we shall be bringing users of evidence and producers of evidence. We shall be deciding on the themes for each year. At least that one has been agreed and approved by the Commission. Number two, we would like to have an association for legislative researchers, an African Parliamentary Legislative Research Association, whereby we think we could share experiences, we could learn from each other. That's peer learning, and we've already had a chance to learn through peer learning between Ghana, Zimbabwe, and we realized that each parliament has got some kind of advantage over another in a given area. Like we realized that when it came to Zimbabwe, they were ahead when it came to constituency profiles. When it came to Ghana, we realized that they were ahead when it came to the community scorecard. When we were during peer learning, we also realized that the Parliament of Uganda was doing well when it came to policy briefing and the budget committee. So we would want to continue with some kind of association whereby the researchers can come together and share technology, share experiences, and learn from each other. Then the other issue is we would like to continue with this kind of spirit of engaging producers of evidence, the academicians, and like recently we had some training whereby we invited professors from universities. They would come, present to researchers, and the researchers would also present. So we would like to continue engaging academicians and other researchers who are in the area of producing evidence. The other thing is that in the long run, we shall be holding a research week for every new parliament, because given that
John, I think you've dropped off there. Hello, are you with us? Okay, I think maybe what we can do now is try and see if we have Rashid on the line. Thank you very much, John, for your comments there. I think you just got cut off at the end there. Rashid, are you with us? Would you like to join in?
Yes. Can you hear me, Emily?
Hi, great. Hearing you loud and clear.
Okay.
Do go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and sorry about the challenges with technology here. I'm sitting in the same space with Dr. Zach, but somehow he managed to get through, and I was having, listen, some of the questions that I'm at the point where, this has strengthened my belief that the issue that we are discussing this morning, peer learning, has helped improve the use and, if you like, uptake of evidence in the three parliaments we have heard from. Uh, so what this tells us is that peer learning, particularly with regards to evidence use, has a very huge potential in supporting our democratic processes, particularly in countries that are still struggling to develop the full potential of most of our legislative institutions. I have heard three things. Maybe that are common in all three presentations. First of all, I have heard that I think we need mechanisms that would give visibility and raise awareness about the importance and use of evidence. In the case of Kenya, I think we had the mechanism has been the caucus. The non-partisan cross-party by multiple departments within the parliament. We had the parliamentary budget, the research department, and so on. In the case of Uganda, I think we've heard that the mechanism has been the research week. That was driven mainly by the Department of Research Services, but also with collaboration from other units of information within the Parliament of Uganda. In the case of Ghana, I think the mechanism, again, that is based on peer learning from Uganda. I think the mechanism has been the research week and the setup of IDRIC, that from Dr. Zakaria. And this is driven mainly by the research department, but also other information units with Parliament of Ghana. The next theme that I have heard from all three presentations is the importance of collaboration. So in the case of, for instance, we've heard the collaboration with INASP and AFRIDEP. In the case of Uganda, I think the collaboration with INASP, but also the research community in Uganda, and then emphasis going forward, as well as linkages and collaboration with other parliaments in the region. That's the case of Uganda. In the case of Ghana, I think we've also had some collaboration, particularly with research units within universities and think tanks in Ghana, but also collaboration with the Parliament of Uganda has resulted in that of Ghana learning, taking the example from Uganda to institute the research week that we saw here in Ghana. The third thing, I think, common theme is the issue of learning. So that derives from my second point, that is collaboration. So from the last speaker, we heard John talk about how, when it came to their relationship with Ghana and Zimbabwe, I think they were able to learn from each of those parliaments, because I think he felt that those parliaments had some strengths and had certain things that they could contribute to the work that was being done in Uganda. We had the issue of, for instance, the community scorecard, which is, generating evidence from real people who are experiencing service delivery and so on the ground. Uganda is learning this from Ghana. We've seen Ghana learning from Uganda in terms of the Research Week and other initiatives. And then we've seen in the case of Uganda, both Ghana and in the case of Zimbabwe, both Ghana and Uganda learning from Zimbabwe the whole idea of constituency profiling and so on. So these are the three broad, common themes that that I had running through the three presentations. But now I want to come to my own general comments before maybe I hand it to Emily. I think what we are seeing is that I don't want to emphasize this again, but I think it's worth mentioning that evidence-informed policy making is critical for strengthening democracy, because as parliaments become more open, as voters, there is pressure, I think, on our lawmakers, on our representatives, not just to get up and speak, and not to make laws and provide oversight on the basis of opinion and so on, but rather on the basis of evidence. So overall, what this tells us is that evidence already would help improve oversight, would help accountability, would help improve lawmaking, and most importantly, would help improve representation. Now, it is important to emphasize that, we heard some of this from Kenya, that MPs can disagree in terms of their ideology and so on, orientation, but what we want, the role that we want evidence to play is to help them agree on the facts, so that at least when they rise up to make arguments, I think they should be united in terms of the facts, which means that those who generate evidence would do well to ensure that whatever they generate is not contaminated, it's not based on opinion, and so on and so forth. In the last year of our involvement in the work within us, as well as these three parliaments, and then together with the Parliament of Kenya, I think we got confirmation, because let me say that my organization, the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, has been working with parliaments for many years, and before then I was involved in work with the network problem. Hello?
Hello, hearing you fine.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I don't know where I got cut off, but let me just continue.
I don't think you were
from,
cut off, Rashid. I was through. Please go ahead.
Sorry? Is it okay? Can I go ahead? Hear me?
Yes, please do continue. We're hearing you okay.
Okay, so what I was saying was that in the last year or so of our involvement with work with INASP, and then the few parliaments that we've worked with in terms of evidence-informed policy making, we got confirmation, first of all, of the importance of peer learning in general. I think I've emphasized already some of the benefits in my earlier remarks. And then secondly, but most importantly, this issue of peer learning relates to evidence-informed policy making. In other words, I think within the space of evidence-informed policy making, I think peer learning levels of peer learning, as again we have heard from previous presenters. We have staff to staff, we have staff MPs, we have peer learning within parliaments, and then peer learning across parliaments, also across projects. I think I will speak about this. This last in a bit. And there are also different aspects of peer learning. We've seen maybe from the positive, that is the good, to the negative, or if you like, the challenges. So during the processes of peer learning, I think not only do we learn the good things, but we can also learn from the challenges of others. Again, I think in terms of our relevance of peer learning, research week from Uganda to Ghana, scorecard from Ghana to Uganda, and then the work that we have SEPA in us to other projects and programs. Because right now, SEPA is involved in some collaboration with ongoing projects here in Ghana by different donors and institutions, and we've been trying. And I think that there is a general kind of agreement and acceptance that you need to take that evidence that is being generated, in this case, not by researchers within parliaments, but by organizations that are working on the ground. And this evidence, we are hoping, could be brought to parliament, but before it gets presented to member parliament and committees, it will be packaged in a way that will be acceptable and that would make for easy uptake by members of parliament. So we are going to be working with the research department here to make sure that through maybe the use of policy briefs and other mechanisms that that have meant in the collaboration with ourselves and INAS, some of these work that is being done and peer learning from projects could be brought to bear on the work of the parliament, and we hope that maybe in future this will be extended to other parliaments where we work across the continent. Through peer learning, I think the parliaments that have been involved are learning lessons on overcoming challenges in terms of maybe what is it that, for instance, Uganda has done to ensure uptake, to ensure that members of parliament take evidence on. Some of these are being learned by parliaments that collaborate with the Parliament of Uganda, for instance. Now, we had just a small pilot, and I'm talking about the evidence-informed policy making project with support from DFID and lately Sparks. That is the project that we implemented with INAS. What that is pointing out and what it is showing is that peer learning and evidence-informed policy making, the space of evidence-informed policy making, has a huge help for improving democracy and development. Just going back to my initial point, and I think some scaling up and some kind of longer term commitment if we are going to go into partnership. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rashid. I have one question for you, if that's okay, and then I might ask the same question to the other presenters. I think what you've highlighted is both the value of peer learning and the challenge of peer learning, because it's such a complex process, as you highlighted, staff learning from each other and institutions learning from each other, and then all of us partners that are managing and implementing these kinds of projects are also learning from each other. So it's an area with a lot of potential. It's also quite a complex area, and it can be challenging. And so I was wondering if you could highlight say one really key ingredient that you think is important for a successful peer learning initiative between parliaments, and not necessarily one around evidence, but I mean drawing on your experience working in other areas of parliamentary strengthening. And then John Morale and Dr. Zachariah, I'll come to you as well with the same question in a moment. So Rashid, what are your thoughts on the kind of key ingredient of a successful peer learning initiative?
Well, I think it's very difficult to pin it down to just one. But I'll give my first pick, and then I will give maybe some others. I think the first, and most important, is maybe having some thought leaders and some commitment from within these institutions. So I think in the case of Uganda, we've seen John as a driving force behind this. In the case of Ghana, I think we've seen Dr. Zachariah being the driving force behind this. In the case of Kenya, at least lately, with based on the work with Sparks, we've seen the leadership of Morale and so on. We've been involved in parliamentary work, I think, for the past 15 years. And we've set up networks, we've set up initiatives to ensure collaboration and so on. And I think in most cases, these initiatives just simply died because you didn't have key people within these institutions driving this. And so through the work and through the collaboration within us and the work that we did, I think we have succeeded in, if you like, converting people who are already passionate about the issue of research and about the issue of evidence. So that would be my first one. And related to it is the whole idea of political buy-in, because you need these institutions to provide support and to buy into the whole idea of the importance of evidence, so that these champions or leaders that emerge would get support from their institutions. And I think the third one is the fact that we need to ensure that evidence is grounded, evidence is solid, and that would help this whole peer learning process to succeed. Because if you are providing, you are learning from, your peers, and then you are providing evidence based on the learning, and the evidence is not grounded, then you are likely to have MPs and the parliament not supporting these initiatives and not providing the needed buy-in in order for this process to continue and eventually get institutionalized. So I think I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Rashid. John, would you like to weigh in terms of thinking about the key ingredients for a successful initiative? We've heard from Rashid about the role of champions. I absolutely agree, the importance of political buy-in. I wonder if there's anything else, John, from your experience that you would highlight as a key ingredient.
Thank you, Emily. One, like as Dr. Rashid has indicated, you need a lot of commitment and a dedicated team, because in most cases it comes like an additional kind of assignment. You've already had your own arrangements, then you get some extra kind of activity which comes like an additional kind of assignment. Then the other big challenge normally which comes with it, there are differences. We've had differences because of ICTs. We've also had differences the way we approach assignments. Some are very quick, others take a lot of time. So you need to accommodate each and every kind of situation so that you go along with the ones who are quick and the ones who are very slow. Lastly, when the leadership is committed to peer learning, And if it brings along or aligns the members of the department to that peer learning, then you are sure that it would succeed. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks very much, John. Dr. Zachariah, anything from you to add in terms of key elements for successful peer learning? Oh, I think we may be just waiting for Dr. Zachariah to get connected there. Marale, would you like to? Oh, no, sorry. I think we've got Dr. Zachariah. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you, Emily, for yes. Talking about the key ingredients, I think one of the most important ingredients that is facilitating peer learning is, first of all, the existence of different experiences from the countries involved or the individuals. The experiences from those countries that vary, just like what we just discussed. Ghana's experience is different from Ugandan's experience. And therefore, once you have this existing, then it is one of the key ingredients. The second thing is that the other side must be ready to learn from the other side's experience. If Ghana identified an experience in Ghana like the Church Week, we showed commitment and ready from it. And that is how come we are able to learn. So if you are not ready, you are not committed, it will also be very, very difficult for one to learn. And finally, as Dr. Rashid indicated earlier, the political buy-in. We are working within a political environment. Each parliamentary research is within a broader umbrella of parliament. That whole parliament is a political environment. So if you don't get buy-in from the politicians and they are ready to support, to assist you, then it will be very, very difficult for you to learn. So we need these three ingredients and many others that have been mentioned by earlier speakers. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Marale, do you have anything you would like to add on that point?
One thing I would just want to add, I think one of the other one would be having an open mind, being when you want to engage in peer learning, you must be willing to have an open mind, be objective, because ultimately the reason you're in there to learn is to be able to apply one or two things, and so you must be open-minded to know that once you learn, whatever you're learning might not necessarily work in a context. Yeah, so you have to be able to pick one or two principles to apply within your context. So you must also be very flexible to see what are some of the things you have learned that are able to be applicable in a situation. Yeah, so for example, in a different setup, different parliament, probably the use of a caucus may not necessarily work to be able to achieve the same objective. So what else would really work in a particular in your context? So I think being open-minded and objective would really work in the context of peer learning. Yeah.
I think we've lost you there, Marale. Hello? Marale, are you still with us?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
All right. So I just mentioned about being objective and being open-minded when in the context of peer learning, because when you get into a setting where you want to learn from your peers, not all the principles you're going to learn are going to be applicable in your context. So you must be willing to be able to apply whatever it is that is applicable in whatever context you're going to apply. So you have to be open-minded in the process of peer learning. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're nearing the end of our time now, and I know that there are a number of people in the audience who have asked questions which we haven't been able to answer due to time constraints so far today. I just want to make time for one more question, and apologies to all of you who asked questions and we haven't been able to cover them. But there was one question which I think is a great one to end on, and I wanted to ask John Bagonza if he would be able to answer this one, which is around what kind of change do you see in the ways that MPs are making deliberations, or maybe the quality of deliberation after they are using research and evidence? So when you've seen the demand for research go up and the demand for evidence go up, can you give us some examples of what kind of changes we can expect to see in the actual quality of deliberation?
Thank you, Emily. It's kind of a difficult technical question, but I'll try. Number one, what we've seen of late is that committee meetings, the chairperson or the members of that committee, that has been one of the recent changes. Secondly, especially when committees are going for oversight activities, normally the researchers come in and they give them the approach notes, the technical guiding questions, and some key issues which would be of interest for them to oversee when maybe they've gone in the field. And then the other issue is we've also seen of recent that whenever there's House debate, every member wants to contribute. In fact, they are limited because of lack of time. And then the other issue is members have continued to come to the Department of Search Services and other two departments which contribute to the production of evidence. We have the Budget Office, we have the Legal and Legislative Services. They've continued to come to them to seek for evidence and guidance. So I think there's some kind of improvement. Of course, it's very difficult to measure that because a member has debated very well in the House is because of the evidence you gave. But in some instances, we've seen bills or important motions moved because of the evidence we've given. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks very much, John. Rashid, any last comments from you as discussant on that question or other themes of the discussion?
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yes. No, I was just saying that not specifically on that question, but maybe just a very general comment. Just to say, I want to encourage our three parliaments because I think what we have seen in the last year or so has been a very good kind of driving force from these three. I mean, we started with the Parliament of Zimbabwe, but somehow I think if I compare, not seeing the kind of leadership that we are seeing in these three parliaments that are here with us today. Perhaps maybe the conditions in Zimbabwe did not before 2 or 3 days ago did not allow that. But I hope that going forward we can continue to engage them, because I think they've been well socialized into buying into the IPM processes and the importance of it, and say I want to encourage these leaders, I think, to continue to provide leadership, and what kind of commitment I believe we will be able to get many more parliaments joining, particularly I think as we've been nursing the idea of seeing a very growing network of EIPM across the continent. And I also want to say, I don't know how many donors and partners are with us today, but I want to say that I think resources, in terms of financial resources, I mean, will not be everything, but I believe they will be important in supporting and sustaining some of these efforts. I mean, that we are seeing driven by some of these people, and sometimes little resources that they have.
Thank you very much, Rashid. So just in closing our discussion, I wanted to point everyone to a new online resource which we have created in collaboration with the Agora portal on parliamentary development, which is hosted by UNDP. There are a lot of really interesting and really complex questions that have come up today, which of course we can't cover entirely in today's webinar, but we're aware that there are a lot of people who are working on this issue. I mean, the champions and the drivers of change within the parliaments that we've been working with, a number of other organizations, both implementers and researchers, are thinking about these questions. So what we really wanted to do was pull together some of that insight and some of that expertise from all of our colleagues in the sector that are also thinking about this, and gather it in one place so that we can all continue to learn from each other. So we've started off the portal with a few of our favorite resources, and we really welcome recommendations and suggestions from all of you, drawing on your own experience and your own ideas about this as to what we should be including in that portal. So do have a look at the link and let us know what you think we can add. And we're really looking forward to growing this space and receiving your recommendations as well. So you can contact Agora using the email address shown, and they do also have a newsletter. So really look forward to continuing the discussion with all of you, and hopefully thinking more about some of those important questions that were raised today. And so I would just like to say a really big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you very much to our speakers. I know I've personally learned a huge amount from working with all of you, and it's been a real pleasure to have this discussion today. I'd also like to thank the Effective Institutions platform for supporting our webinar and supporting this peer learning space. And I would like to thank GIZ and NDI in Accra and Kampala for helping us out today with hosting some of our speakers for the webinar. So very much appreciated, and thank you very much for joining us and for your patience with our technical difficulties. We look forward to staying in touch. You can contact us on Twitter as shown on the page, and we also have a newsletter and a blog and so on as well. So thank you for sharing all of your expertise and insight, and I hope everyone has a really lovely afternoon. Thank you.